Let's give God a hand this morning. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Man, we should pray that all the time. God, take me where I trust you no matter what. Right? Come on. Y'all glad to be in church this morning? Yes. Good. I hope you're having an awesome day. We're excited to have you here this morning. Last week, we began a new series entitled Decisions, where we began looking into God's Word for some helpful advice when it comes to our decision making. Raise your hand if you were here last week. All right, good. So most of you know what's going on, right? I'm excited to continue in this series with you and those of you who are watching online. We learned a lot of things last week. First off, we learned that as adults, we make a lot of decisions, don't we, Sherry? On average, we make about 35,000 decisions a day. That's why we're so tired all the time. That and springing forward don't help either. I'm telling you. Even though we make that many decisions, I'm telling you, decisions matter. Every single decision we make still matters. Every single decision is more powerful than we ever could imagine. This past Sunday, we also learned a valuable lesson about these decisions, though. We read in Exodus chapter 32 about deciding between right and wrong. Do y'all remember that? We learned what it looks like to make a decision between right and wrong. And here's what we discovered we should do. Don't look out here in the world, for your definition of right and wrong. Do y'all remember that, church? Here's what we learned last week. I'm going to give you a brief overview. In lieu of God's word, His command, and His counsel, in our story last week, the Israelites decided to look into the world around them for an example as they were making a very vital decision. The decision they were making is, how do we worship God? You know, what does it look like for us, the Israelites, to worship God out here on our own? And they chose to worship the way they had always watched the Egyptians worshipped. They formed a golden calf, remember? They formed an idol and began to worship that. And boy, was that a mistake. That was wrong. That was the wrong decision. That Egyptian example led them to a pretty dark place, doing some pretty wrong things, all under the guise of saying it was worship. The consequences of those actions cost them dearly, and it revealed an important lesson to us. There is danger in looking into the world in order to define what is right and what is wrong. When we look out here in the world and we think that maybe because it's accepted by culture or because these people are doing that or these people say it's right or that's wrong, when we use that to define, we're making a real mistake. There is nothing out here in the world that we can rely on to tell us what is right and wrong. There is no government, no system, no medium, no influence, and no person that will lead us right all the time. It just won't happen. The world will inevitably lead us astray. Everybody with me? What we discovered is only God can be trusted to share with us and to show us what is right and wrong. That may sound old-fashioned to some. That may sound closed-minded. If it does, good. Because it's true. It's true. It's what I believe, and it's what we believe as Christians. We must go to God when we're faced with a decision between what is right and what is wrong. We must rely on Him to lead us to do the right thing. Everybody caught up? Now, today we're going to be talking about another decision that we all face often, and that is the decision between now and later. Now and later. Everybody with me? Man, this is a decision I'm passionate about, church. It's one I care a lot about. Most people, and me, myself included, live in the now while disregarding the later. Am I right? And truth be told, I didn't know this until I had kids, but we're born this way. We're born living for now, for what we need right now, what we feel right now. We're born just to live a little bit impulsively. That is instant gratification. We're just born that way. Andy, Ren, and Letty, when they were born, I realized it was just right there. They live for the now. You name a decision that we give them, and they're going to choose now. They're going to choose what benefits them right here, right now, right this second. I'll give them an option like this. I'll say, girls, you can clean your room and then just watch TV the rest of the evening, or you can watch TV for a little bit, and then you're going to have to go clean your room. I'm going to stop it, and you'll go clean your room. What do y'all think they're deciding? Watch TV right now, right? They never stop to consider which one of these options gives me the most TV time, right? They never stop to consider that. I'll do this. I'll say, all right, they'll want something. Say we're out somewhere, ice cream or something. They'll say, can I have a treat? Can I have a treat now? And I'll say, I'll tell you what, you can have that little treat now. We'll get you a little treat now. Or you can save it up and we'll do something big later. What do you think they're deciding? Little treat now. Duh. That is what they're going to decide every single time. And we're born that way. And as any good parent should, I use it against them all the time. You know what I mean? I'll say, hey, they'll want to do something. I'll say, yeah, you can, of course, yeah, girls, you can do that. But the only thing is, you're going to have an early bedtime. And they'll say, okay, and they off to do whatever it was that they asked permission to do. And I go, got him. Early bedtime. And here's the great part. What they wanted to do has nothing to do with their bedtime. I just really want them to go to sleep early every night. You know what I'm saying? That's what I do. I use it against them. I know these girls can't say no to now, and that's the truth. Andy, truthfully, I'll tell you this. Andy just started wising up to it pretty good. So much so that even when I offer her something now, she tells me no. Because she doesn't trust me. She thinks it's immediately going to end up turning into an early bedtime or something like that. So she's like, no, I don't want anything from you. Anyway, this now versus later decision is challenging. But why? Why do we find ourselves, even as adults, choosing and deciding immediately, impulsively, and impetuously? Like, why do we do that? And not only why do we do that, but how do we begin making better decisions, better time decisions? How do we end up making better decisions between now and later? Are y'all interested, church? Good. For that, if you want to, you can turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 25. I got to tell you guys a story this morning. Genesis chapter 25. Now, this story we're going to read is not long after God has made his covenant with Abraham, that he's going to turn Abraham into a nation and give them a land and all the things that he promises Abraham. And so Abraham, as you know, had a son named Isaac, and then Isaac married a woman named Rebekah, and they were having twin boys, which will be at the heart of today's story. They were having twin boys. By all biblical accounts, it would seem that these twins were always a little competitive, as brothers can be. We'll see. Always in verse 22, as a matter of fact, in chapter 25, in verse 22, it tells us that they struggled in the womb, which I imagine had to be difficult for Rebekah. They were fighting for room in there. And we're told in the Bible that the first child was born, and it was a boy, and we're told he was very red and covered in thick hair like a fur coat. Now, that would be a little disconcerting, wouldn't it? Can we just own that a little bit? Like, that's weird. Little wolf baby. I don't know. But anyway, they named this boy, this first boy, they named him Esau, get this, which means hairy. What if we all did that? What if we all, as soon as the baby was born, that process happened, the baby was born, we just named them based on how they looked in that moment? I would have Squints, Goblin, and Chafed. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all get that joke? Okay. Look, I'm sorry, guys, but when babies are first born, they're just not very pretty. I'm sorry. Somebody needs to say it. They've just been through an ordeal. Anyway, a day or two later, super cute. Immediately, if you just named him Harry, anyway, Esau, where are we at? The second boy, we're told, came out of the womb holding Esau's heel. So the second boy was right behind Esau, holding his heel. And so they named him Jacob. Now, this is interesting. They named him Jacob, which is a Hebrew idiom for the one that grabs the heel, which also means deceiver. Okay? It means someone who is kind of deceptive. This definitely proves to be accurate as we continue to read in our story. And if you read all of Jacob's story, you'll see that. But we're told the boys begin to grow up. And Esau became a skillful hunter. He became an outdoorsman, which is my kind of guy, right? A man's man. He's just out in the woods all the time, taking down deer and turkeys and bringing them back, and his dad loves that about him. He's just a great hunter. Jacob, on the other hand, had a quiet temperament, and we're told preferred to stay at home, a.k.a. mama's boy. There's nothing wrong with being a mama's boy, but he is actually a mama's boy if you read the story there. All right. We get a glimpse into their personalities. And I think we could all imagine that Esau was the hunter, the rugged, aggressive, brash, more brawny character, hairy. I think he stayed hairy for the rest of his life. And Jacob is the more quiet, calculating, careful, smart brother. Okay? Everybody with me? In verse 29, we're going to pick up reading right here. It says, one day when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau arrived home from the wilderness, exhausted and hungry. Really quick, pause. What is Esau feeling? Hungry. He's got a need, right? He's feeling a certain way. He was feeling tired. He was feeling hungry. And I want you to see that. I want to say, I don't know how hungry he is, but apparently enough for it to be a deal in his life. I have been on some long trips where we've been out in the woods day after day after day, and I'll tell you this, nothing has ever made me more tired and more hungry than just being out in the elements all day. There's something about it, right, Tony? There's something about it. You're hungry and tired when he gets there. And so that's the condition that Esau arrives home in. In verse 30, Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. So Jacob's making some stew. Give me some of that red stew. Now, I always imagine Danny and Karen Pelfrey's red stew that they make. If you've never had it, it's incredible. It's a deep, dark red. It's spicy. It's got chicken. It's got onions in it. It's got all these fixings, and it's really spicy. And I can tell you, if you were just coming in from a hunting trip, you've been gone out in the elements for a while, it would be pretty appetizing just to get that hot food, that hot stew in your belly. In verse 31, it says, all right, Jacob replied, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. Wow. Seems like a big deal, don't it, Chris? Trade me your rights as the firstborn son. What's going on? Jacob, I think Jacob sees an opening. He sees an opportunity. He sees his brother's weakness. His brother's hungry, and his brother's in a bad mood, and his brother's tired, and he sees all of that. And I think he also knows Esau's proclivity to make an impulsive decision. Everybody with me? I think Esau probably had a little bit of a reputation as making impulsive decisions. And he says, trade me your rights as your firstborn son. Well, that should lead you to a question. What are his rights as the firstborn son? What is Jacob asking for, right? Ask me that, church. Say, what was he asking for? The birthrights. Let me explain this to you. Passages in the Bible like Deuteronomy 21, verse 17, and 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verses 1 through 2 teaches us that the birthrights in the Israelite community of the firstborn son involved both economic and spiritual elements. Okay? They're both economic and spiritual elements. The son of the birthright, the firstborn son, first of all, received a double inheritance of a double portion of the inheritance. So they got twice as much as any other sibling got. Okay, that's a big deal, right? They also become the head of the family. Not just the head of the family making decisions for the family, but they also become the spiritual head of the family, the spiritual leader upon the passing of the father. In the case of this family, talking about Abraham and Isaac's family, this birthright also determined who would inherit the covenant between God and Abraham. You with me? The covenant between God and Abraham, that I'm going to make you into a nation and make you into a people, and I'm going to give you a land, and the Messiah is going to come from your line. Like, that's the birthright that they're talking about. Does that sound pretty important to you? Okay. Verse 32, though, look what Esau does. He says, look, I'm dying of starvation. Real quick, do you think Esau was dying of starvation? Do you think he was being a little overdramatic? Probably. I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? What good is my birthright to me now? Do y'all see that sentence? It's very important. Esau, again, I want to show you this. He acknowledges how he's feeling. Now he's not just exhausted and hungry. Now he is dying of starvation. You see that? It's gotten worse in a minute or so. He acknowledges that feeling. But he also shares an important insight about how he feels about his birthright. You see this? He says, my birthright is not important to me right now. What good is this going to do me? It's not helping me. Esau fails to see what that birthright means later. Verse 33. Jacob wasn't giving in until he had the deal. Look what he says. He said, but Jacob said, first you must swear that your birthright is mine. I'm not giving you any stew, brother, until you say the birthright is mine. Look at this. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. What? Then Jacob gave Esau some bread. I think he sweetened the deal right there. He said, here, have some bread. You know, brother, I appreciate that. Here's a loaf of bread. And look at this. And lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. Got his belly full and left. Now, you should be disgusted right now. Because I was imagining the red stew was Pelf's stew. It turns out it's lentil stew. I had to look up what a lentil was. It's an edible legume. I had to look up what an edible legume was. It's a bean. He traded his birthright. He sold away his birthright for some bean soup. No beef, no chicken, just lentils. That made me sick, man. The last verse of this story, man, I'm telling you, is so important, though. Look at this. The last verse in chapter 25, it says, speaking of Esau, it said, he showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. He showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. You know what it means? This is what, in the eyes of God, the way Esau treated his birthright was as if he detested it, as if he scorned it, as if he hated it, as if it was worthless to him. That's the way he treated his birthright. You with me? Esau's decision cost him greatly. He lost his place in the line of his father. He missed out on blessings and wealth that he would have just been handed. Jacob ended up being the one that carried on the covenant between God and Abraham rather than Esau. It cost him everything. All right. So how do we get better at these decisions between now and later? Can I show you guys some things? Yes. Where did Esau go wrong? Do you see the problem in Esau's decision making? Can I share a couple things with you? Number one, this is it. Esau decided based on temporary feelings. Esau was feeling something, right? And it was very important to him in that moment. It mattered greatly to him. He was what? He was hungry. No, he was dying of starvation, y'all. And his decision in large part was the result of an illusion that his hunger needed to be satisfied, and it had to be satisfied immediately, right this second. Esau wasn't willing to wait. He wasn't willing to postpone his eating, and he was going to get what he needed no matter what right then and there. Do you see that? Even if it was a bowl of lentil stew. But you and I, reading the story, we know some things about this. You and I know that eventually, if he'd have just waited, another meal would have come along. Maybe mom and dad would have invited him over to supper. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody would have said, hey, I got some leftovers if you'd like. I mean, don't you know what I'm saying? Like another meal probably would have come along had he just waited. You and I know that hungry feeling probably would have subsided. If you've ever fasted, if you've ever went for a while without eating, you know it kind of comes and goes in waves. Right? Yes. Not the only one that's felt that. I mean, you can be really, really hungry, and all of a sudden, if you'll kind of wait through it, all of a sudden it goes away. Not to mention, Esau could have just drank a glass of water, filled his belly up, and he'd have been fine for a few minutes. There were options. But Esau, he wasn't willing to wait. He wasn't willing to try anything else. He believed he needed that. He wanted that right then and there. He made a huge decision based on temporary feelings, and it cost him greatly. Everybody with me? Yes. The second mistake I feel like Esau made is he decided with a skewed value system. Esau made a decision with a skewed value system. Esau said what? What good is my birthright now? Right? So the value of the birthright was only determined by whether it benefited him right now, right this very second, whether it dealt with his need, whether it dealt with those feelings that he had right there in that moment. Because the birthright did not obviously address his immediate need, he placed no value on it in that moment. The birthright wouldn't fix his hunger. Honestly, I don't think Esau paused long enough to even understand or make sure that he was thinking about everything his birthright meant, everything his birthright entailed in his life. He didn't value it properly, so he didn't choose properly. Everybody with me? He didn't value this birthright properly, so he didn't choose properly. To him in that moment, his need and his desire was of more importance than something that would have really mattered years later. You seeing that? And I don't know what he was thinking. Perhaps he thinks, there's plenty of time to fix this. I got plenty of time to get this back, from my brother. Or perhaps he thought, maybe, he's not really going to take this birthright from me. But nevertheless, Esau decided something away on a whim because he felt a certain way. Because he was a poor judge in that moment of what mattered most. His value system was all messed up. You see it? So seeing those two lessons that we see, these two things that we see Esau did wrong, what is our lesson? How do we make sure that when we're making these decisions between now and later, how do we make sure that we make the right decision? How do we make sure that we make the best decision? This is our point. You ready? Note takers, are you ready? Yes. Here it is. Don't sacrifice future blessings for temporary feelings. You got it? Don't sacrifice future blessings for temporary feelings. Don't make a decision right here in this second based on something temporary that you feel or something temporary that you need and have it costing you something way down the road that really, really matters. You with me? All right. Y'all ever done that? Okay, good. We've all done it. Let me give you a light example. This is a light example. In 2017, Brittany and I were about to have our second child. Okay? And by this time, we're experts. And by this time, we do have a couple of things figured out. And one of those things was a couple of days before Ren was about to be born, we went and we were like, let's get the cars ready. Let's go ahead and get the car seats in the car and make sure everything's ready. So we did Brittany's car, and then we went over to my truck, which was a Toyota Tacoma. We moved Andy's seat over behind the driver's seat, and then we put the new car seat over behind the passenger seat. And this is what we realized in that Toyota Tacoma. I was going to be driving like this, and whoever's in the passenger seat is just going to be laying their head on the dash. Okay, that's what we realized. And all of a sudden, this thought came into my brain, and do you know what it was? I need a new truck. I got to get a new truck. I got to get a bigger truck. Our family's growing. The stress is there of all this that's about to happen. And so literally, a day or two before the baby's born, I'm on the phone, just Auto Trader, Car Gurus, doing all the things, looking. While we're at the hospital having the baby, and I say we as if I had a part in that, guess what I'm doing? Anytime there's a break, not like wow, she's in labor, but like any moments I'm looking, and I found a truck. It's like the first one I found. I'm not kidding. Now I've been planning on getting a bigger truck eventually. I always loved Toyotas. That was what I wanted to get. But I found this F-150. It was close by. It was like easy to stop at. And so literally with a day or two old baby, once we left the hospital, the first stop was at a dealership to get this truck. We looked at it. What do you think, Britt? About 27 seconds, something like that. We looked at it about 27 seconds, and I bought a F-150 truck. Okay, put the car seat in it in the parking lot of the dealership. Okay, that's where we were. That's how we were living. Bought this truck. Now, I just want to say this, and this is not a stab if you're a Ford person or a Chevrolet person or any of those things. It is the worst truck I've ever owned in my entire life. Okay? It had a new noise every day. Something would be rattling in. I'd be like, what is it? I couldn't figure it out. The doors didn't seal good. The transmission shifted rough. It rode like a goat wagon. It was just, I'm talking about this thing, and I literally would drive this truck, and Brittany will tell you, I'd get in it every day. I'd lean in the steering wheel. I'd say, I hate you so much. Just like that. And just, I don't know what I was thinking. We were tired. We were exhausted. I was feeling the pressure. I was like, man, I got to get a truck. It's got to happen now. We got these 2 kids coming home. I'm the one that's going to be driving them here and there every day. Most of the time, I got to have the right truck. So I decided, I didn't wait 5 minutes to make that decision. I drove that truck for a year just to punish myself for that decision. And then went and traded it. And here's the deal. And I'm going to tell you guys something. You may not know this, or you may not be willing to believe this, but we lost big when I went and traded that truck in. Lost thousands of dollars. Because I promise you this about car dealers. I love you if you're a car dealer and you're here, but they win every time. They win. If you walk out of there going, we did good, you didn't. Okay? You didn't. I'm sorry. It's okay. We made a long-term decision with temporary feelings. We sacrificed future blessings with temporary feelings. That's what we did. And that's what we do all the time. Can I tell you this, man? How often do we make decisions like that? We make a decision without being willing to wait, by not being willing to just wait and see if it passes. See how important that need really is, or that feeling really is, and we hand away future blessings into the abyss. We decide impulsively. We decide with false urgency. Are y'all with me? We decide with fabricated justifications. I'm dying here. Right? Isn't that what he said? He wasn't dying. I'm telling you, we as people, we give up on what matters most. We misvalue relationships, commitments, God and His blessings. We misvalue them because we can't see how much they'll matter later. That's what we do. So how do we fix it? How do we make sure that we don't sacrifice future blessings for temporary feelings? You ready? Yes. That's what you do. You got to remember that temporary feelings are temporary. There are going to be moments in your life where you're sad. There are going to be moments in your life where you're overwhelmed, moments in your life where you're stressed, moments in your life where you're mad. Right, church? Yes. And then, next thing you know, you'll be happy, you'll be free, you'll be relaxed, you'll be at peace. It'll just pass, whatever it is. What you feel so often is not going to last. And even what you think you need and you got to have right now, I want to tell you something. If you'll wait just a minute, a lot of times you'll see it didn't last. This is what I would do. I'd be careful making decisions in the extremes. Be careful making decisions in the extreme. When you're really mad, don't make a decision. You hear me? When you're really sad, don't make a decision. If you go, we got to have it and I got to have it now, don't make a decision. Don't be hungry and go to the grocery store, right? Don't do that. What happens if you do that? You impulse bought the whole store, right? You come out and you're like, I didn't need all that, but I did because I was hungry, right? It's the same thing, but in a larger sense with more important things. Don't make decisions in the extremes. Avoid deciding at the extremes of your feelings. It's dangerous, and if you're not careful, you may very well give away something that you never meant to. That's the truth. I would do this too. Value the future blessings for what they are. The problem with us people is we can't see past tomorrow. We can't. For some reason, we can't. We don't understand, or we're not willing to stop and actually value those things and see how much they're going to value later. Most of us definitely aren't deciding like tomorrow matters, let alone 30 years from now. Here's what we need to do. We need to pause and think about what's going to matter most later. We need to pause and think about what's going to be truly valuable to me later when we're making decisions. We need to slow down and assess how valuable is this thing that I'm sacrificing. You with me? We need to see the value of being healthy later. You with me, church? Yes. We need to see the value of having a savings account later. You with me? We need to see the value of having a strong marriage later. We need to see the value of having strong relationships with our kids later. We need to see those things as the most important things, and we need to see them for what they truly are and value them for what they truly are. And whatever decisions we're making about work, about money, about this, about that, how we spend our time, all of those things need to be valued properly. You with me? We need to value our relationship with God and what He wants with us. We need to value it properly. We need to correctly value it. Because truth be told, if I had to step back as your pastor and I had to say what I watch most people do in their decision making is this, and especially in their decision making between now and later, is this: we trade away our birthright like it's going out of style. Do you know what your birthright is? Your birthright is your relationship with God. He created you. He made you. And He made you to be in relationship with Him. And if you've accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, He has brought you into that relationship. And it can be more than you ever could have imagined. But here's the thing. Most of us every day go about our lives deciding away that birthright, deciding away that relationship that He wants us to have with Him. That's what we do. We hand it away for this. Oh, this has got to happen at work, or we got to make it to this game, or we got to make it to this thing, or we got this project that we got to do, and we decide away that same birthright that was given to us. Are you with me? Here's the truth. Later, you're going to wish you had a great relationship with God. Later, you're going to wish that you let Him guide you through your life. Later, you're going to wish you would have relied on Him in all those times of difficulty you went through. Don't sacrifice the future blessings of a relationship, a strong, thriving relationship with God. Don't sacrifice that for temporary feelings and for temporary things. And for things we think we need right now. That's how you get better at deciding between now and later. Make sense, church? Yes. Let me pray for you. God, I thank You for this church. I thank You for each and every person that is here. I'm thankful, God, for just how You're leading us and what You're doing. God, every single one of us, every day, we're faced with the difficult decision. There are things that have got to happen in life. There are things that we have to do. There are things that come up, problems that we face, things that upset us, things that make us mad, stresses that arrive in our life that make us feel like we've got to decide right now. We've got to take care of this thing right now. We need to do this right this second. And for some reason, we end up so wrapped up and captivated by the now and everything that's got to happen right now that we sacrifice all the good and all the great things that will be so valuable to us later. God, this is my prayer. My prayer is that as a church, we will see those extremes. We'll see those temporary things for what they really are. We'll wait. We'll take our time. We won't feel pressure to decide right this second. We'll assess the value of the things we're deciding. Our marriages, our health, our relationship with You, God. We'll see the value of all of these things, the value of our children, God, and we will decide wisely. We will decide correctly. We will decide about what matters most. And what will happen is 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be proud of the decisions that we made, valuing today. God, I love this church, and I don't want to just see them following You today. I want to see them following you for the next 10 years. I want to see what it looks like when they have a strong relationship with you, and they have had one for 20 years and 30 years, God, in the way that you used them, in the way that you've grown them and changed them. And so, God, I pray that every day that we're faced with a now versus later, God, we will choose the things that matter most. We'll choose the things that are going to make the biggest difference. We'll choose the things that in our old age, lying on our deathbed, we'll be glad we chose them. We'll be glad we made the right decision. Father, I thank you for this church. I love them. I pray that you be with them this week. Lead them and guide them. Help them to be a shining light in our community in Walhalla. And God, I pray they have a great rest of their Sunday. In Jesus' name, everybody says, amen. Church, I love you. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.